data scientist. So, here is the outline. We look at motivation, and whatever key concepts like matrices, vectors, operations on matrices and vectors that we typically use in uh, our data science, uh, algorithm development, and also in problem solving and so on. So, um, you know, like in many other fields, what typically happens is, people start using libraries and their focus is on learning libraries rather than concepts and so on. And by looking at various examples that they come across, they are able to do some work, but uh, you know that does not enable them to basically develop state-of-the-art algorithms or be able to solve novel problems. To solve novel problems and to be able to, uh, develop state-of-the-art solutions for solving those problems, for understanding the problems in depth. Obviously, you need to have in-depth knowledge and concepts and background in the problem domain as well as in whatever scientific domain is involved over there. So engineers that are truly proficient in that domain, they have to learn all these things and they cannot overlook the constant learning and keeping themselves up to date with whatever scientific developments are taking place in their domain. So linear algebra is based on continuous math rather than discrete math, and that is what we are very much interested in. So computer scientists have little experience with it. So it has been for quite some time that we developed algorithms uh, without requiring extensive use of linear algebra concepts. So we moved away from the mathematical basis. Although, I mean, traditionally, the algorithms and programming languages and their representations, they developed from various branches of mathematics. But, as we moved on and computer science developed as a domain in itself, we did not require usage of these the basic mathematical concept, which is basic statistical concept. So these were kind of overlooked. But I mean, with the rise of machine learning, with the rise of data science, people like us, they were constantly going back and, either working with mathematicians and statisticians, or they were, trying to learn these concepts, trying to relearn them, try to polish them in order to, develop various algorithms, to implement various algorithms. This has happened to me, quite a lot, so, because of that, we developed that understanding, that it was essential to learn statistics and various branches of mathematics for understanding and developing ML algorithms. Even now, if you have to write any of these algorithms from scratch, because, let's say uh, you are working with Apache Spark and, there's a certain algorithm that has not been developed, or if it has been developed as part of some library, but it is not available to you in the right sort of format that you need to apply it to, then obviously you would have to sit down and, learn that algorithm in depth, and then you would have to develop that. And that happens, that happens quite a lot, especially with those organizations uh, that are at the cutting edge. So as I2C moves forward and it moves beyond the basic, catch-up game to being a leader, we will find ourselves doing things that that requires us to write original code. You know, so that means that we will know how to solve a problem. We will solve it on pen and paper, and then we will develop algorithms from scratch, and then we will test them. And obviously, we will have to, even if we know that that problem is being solved by somebody else using this sort of approach, even then, because that code might be proprietary, so you have to develop that code from scratch. So as part of our foundation for our team, we require our team to at least learn or relearn the basic mathematical concepts that will be used throughout the data science course as well as data science domain. So here we discuss scalars, vectors, matrices, tensors, and basic operations on them. So as I was discussing, our motivation, is really important, and this is the motivation that I would expect you to have. So, your goal is to cover linear algebra and probability. It's not my goal, it's your goal as well. So it is to cover linear algebra and probability concepts to aid understanding of machine learning concepts and algorithms. So this is one of your goals. So you want to, learn them. You want to have a reference text of linear algebra and probability, so that when you are reading about, when you are discussing, when you are trying to understand any machine learning concept or any machine learning algorithm, or when you are applying any of these algorithms, you basically know what you are doing actually. What are the mathematical statistical basis for that algorithm, for application of that algorithm. So if you are not clear about that, then it would often happen that you are not aware about the reasons for failures or reason for success of that algorithm, and you can't really improve your solution in any meaningful way because you are not able to assess that. So remember, we put data and matrices and vectors to get things done in machine learning. So, whatever algorithms you use, you are actually putting lots of data and matrices and vectors, and then those algorithms are basically manipulating, those matrices and vectors. So that's, that is the basic understanding that you work with. Understanding how to solve linear equations is at the heart of solving machine learning solutions. So, I mean, any machine learning solution that you are developing, at its heart, it might be solving linear equations to find some unknowns. So, the expectations, because of all these reasons, the expectations that we have from data scientists is, data science problems can neither be understood nor solved without having statistical and mathematical skills. So you are expected to have, a passion for stats and maths, and for applying stats and maths to solve problems, to have statistical intuition about your data, to have statistical intuition about applicability of any machine learning algorithm that you are trying to apply to solve the problem. So if an algorithm is not relevant statistically, or it is not relevant from a mathematical perspective, then obviously, you should know, and you should, try to find a better solution. So data scientists have to continuously apply probabilistic and mathematical skills, and I would also say reasoning to solve problems. So if you cannot apply statistical and mathematical skills and reasoning to understand and solve data and problems, then obviously it is like, you are trying to just do, as they say, jugaad to solve problems. So all your efforts are just jugaad. They don't have strong scientific basis. So these skills are also key to developing and enhancing data science algorithms and solutions. So all the algorithms and solutions that we would cover in next few weeks, they would have some statistical and mathematical basis that would arise out of our background in stats and maths. So scalar is any single number. You would be aware of that. In our mathematical text, we represent it in lowercase italic, like small x. So what we typically say is, let x is a real number, or here, represent real be the slope of the line. So, like x which belongs to R is the slope of the line. So this is how we define a real valued scalar in to solve any problem. Let n be a natural number, be the number of units, where this capital N defines natural number. So apart from scalars, obviously we use vectors. Vectors is any array of number. It is arranged in some order. Each number identified by an index like x1, x2, and so on. Vectors are shown in lowercase letters like small x, and x transpose is, typically vector is shown like a column, and transpose of a vector xt is shown like a row. So if each element is in R, then X is in Rn. So a vector which has n elements is represented as a n-dimensional space of real numbers. Okay. So vector. We think of vectors. Vectors represent some direction, and that direction is in some space, and that space is n-dimensional. So Rn. Okay. Each element gives coordinate along an axis. Then we have matrices. So you must be familiar with matrices as well. Matrices are typically 2D array of numbers. Each element is identified by two indices. We denote them by, bold typeface, like, a boldface A, capital A. Each element indicated as AMN. So all of this is, mathematical notation essentially. So matrices is represented as, elements of the matrices enclosed in square brackets. So like A11, A12, A21, A22. And I mean, even if you have implemented or manipulated matrices, you would be, using that in your loops. Okay. You would be using indices like A11, A12 in your loop. So AI is the ith row of A colon J is the jth column of A. This is how we the notation that we use to represent matrix A. If A has a shape of height m and width n with real values, then we say that A is A belongs to Rm cross n space. So that's some typical matrix notation that we should familiarize ourselves, because all the algorithms that use matrices will be using some notation similar to that. Then there is another concept which is tensor. So we need this concept because we have to deal with tensors quite often while implementing or manipulating lots of data, or implementing any algorithms that essentially manipulate a lot of data. So sometimes we need an array with more than two axes. Okay. So while developing our algorithms, an array arranged as a regular grid with variable number of axes is referred to as tensor. ठीक है. So जहाँ कहीं हम एक array use कर रहे होते हैं with n number of axes, mathematically we are viewing that array as a tensor. So a tensor is often thought of as a generalized matrix. Okay? So because matrix has its own its own mathematics. So we need a separate concept which is tensor, when we are, not actually, we are not treating data in the same way as per matrix operations. So a tensor could be a 1D matrix. We get a vector is actually a tensor. A tensor could be a 3D matrix, something like a cube of numbers. It can be even a 0D matrix. A scalar is a tensor. Or a higher dimensional structure that is harder to visualize. ठीक है, so अब हमारे पास n dimensional data है, ठीक है, या 0 dimensional data या 3 dimensional data या 1 dimensional data. We can put it, or we can take it as a tensor and then work with it. The dimension of the tensor is called its rank. ठीक है, so जो भी dimension होगी वो इसका rank होगा. ठीक है, denote a tensor with bold face, bold typeface, like this bold A that we have got here. So element ijk of tensor is denoted by aijk. ठीक है, so this was all about the tensor notation that we use while dealing with tensor in any area that we might have. So tensor representation. So when we represent data for machine learning, this generally needs to be done numerically. So obviously we are dealing with numeric data, even whatever, even text is represented numerically, and then we are manipulating that. So that gives you an idea that how we typically work with any type of data. So especially when referring specifically of neural network data representation, this is accomplished by our data repository known as Tensor. So in neural networks, you would often have high dimensional data that you are dealing with. So that is typically done with a tensor. So a tensor is a container. So that's a very important intuition. So you can think of tensor as a container which can house data in n dimensions. So in any in any algorithm, when you are dealing with high dimensional data at each point, you might use the intuition or terminology or concept of tensor to deal with it. So mathematically speaking, tensors are more than a simple data container. So obviously, you don't need tensors just to contain data. Obviously, you are going to do operation on that as well. So apart from, aside from holding numeric data, tensor also include descriptions of valid linear transformations between tensors. So in all those complex algorithms that, we develop as a data scientist, as a machine learning engineers, we contain data in tensors, and on that data, we apply certain types of operations that are, specific to those algorithms, to those situations. So those mathematical operations then can be defined on tensors as well. So tensors are not just the containers. They also have some associated operations, mathematical operations with them. So examples of such transformations or relations include cross product, dot product, or any other complex operation. So from a computer science perspective, it can be helpful to think of tensors as being objects in an object-oriented sense, as opposed to simply being a data structure. So when you are thinking about tensors, you should think about, we need convolution operations. We might have, might have got some mathematical operations that we have from digital signal processing. So we are applying those operations. So we might be thinking of data as a signal of some type, and then we are filtering it or something like that. So all those operations are then applied on tensors. So a tensor might be a scalar, it might be a vector, which is one-dimensional, it might be a matrix, which is two-dimensional, or it might be some multi-dimensional container as well. So that's the flexibility of the tensor, that it can contain data with n dimensions, and it can allow us to apply any operations that we might need for a uh, for a unique algorithm that we might be developing. Okay. So, for example, a linear map is represented by a matrix in two-dimensional in a basis, and therefore is a second-order tensor. A vector is represented as a one-dimensional array in a basis, and is a first-order tensor. Scalars are single numbers and are thus zeroth-order tensor. So these are different example of the tensors that we just saw as well. So we have seen scalars earlier as well. So here is, relating them to code. So a single number, a scalar is a single number, a zero-dimensional tensor. So another way to look at scalar is as a zero-dimensional tensor. So it has zero axis and is of rank zero. So if you need a scalar in, in Python, then you can use NumPy as we see here. So we import NumPy as NP, and then, let's say we need a tensor, a scalar as a tensor. So the NP.array 42. So X is now a zero-dimensional tensor, and you can look at its rank as well. Similarly, we can take this concept of one-dimensional tensor, which is a vector, and represent it in code. So, let's say we have a vector which we see 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. We use np.array to represent that vector in X, and then we can look at its rank. So that gives you the basic, from mathematical intuition to moving to code. Similarly, a matrix is a tensor of rank 2, meaning that it has two axes, and a matrix is arranged as a grid of numbers and is technically a two-dimensional tensor. So, again, we use np.array. You know that in NumPy array, you can do any mathematical operations as well. So, you represent your matrix as np array, and then you can, use it to do any mathematical operations that you might need. So here I am not covering, further mathematical operations, but giving the basic intuition on how, you would use Python to encode your vectors, your matrices, and, your scalars as tensors. So let's look at 3D tensors. So while technically all of the above constructs are valid tensors, when we speak of tensors, we are generally speaking of the generalization of concept of a matrix n is greater or equal to 3 dimensions. So typically, when we are thinking of tensors, we are thinking of higher dimensional data representations, typically greater than or equal to 3. We would then normally refer only to tensors of 3 dimensions or more as tensors in order to avoid confusion. So, I mean, that's the, what should I say, our typical convention that, when we are thinking of tensors or when we are applying tensor concept to solve problems, so we are thinking of 3 or more dimensional data structures. So if you were to pack a series of these into a higher order tensor container, it would be referred to as 4D tensors, pack those into another higher order 5D and so on. So that's what we are thinking about typically. 4D, 5D tensors are the typical tensors that we are talking about. So here is an example of a 3D tensor. Again, we use NP array to represent a 3D tensor. Okay, so tensors is something that we use quite often while developing complex algorithms, and obviously, the matrix operations are very important to developing a number of algorithms that we have. Algorithms like PCA, LDA. They depend on matrix operations. So, you must be aware of transpose of matrix. So if A is a matrix, A11, A12, A13, A21, A22, A23. Then A transpose basically, represents each row as a column and so on. So the first row A11, A12, A13 depends, becomes the first column of the transpose matrix and so on. And the second row becomes the second column and so on. So vectors are matrices with a single column, and typically we represent a vector as a column, and if we want to show vector as a row, then we write x is equal to vector x is equal to x1 to up to xn transpose, which is represented by T. Since a scalar is a matrix with one element, so we might write A is equal to A transpose to show that to meet the convention requirements that we have with matrices and vectors. So matrix addition, if A and B have the same shape, then their matrix addition is possible. So we write C is equal to A plus B, and because you would be doing this addition, or if you need to implement matrix addition, you would be doing that element wise. So it is very important for us that we write these subscripts I comma j. So Ci comma j is equal to Aij plus Bij. So this is how you would implement matrix addition or any matrix operations in your code. So a scalar can be added to a matrix or multiplied by a scalar. So D is equal to AB plus C, and we can again write that as if A is a scalar and C is a scalar, Dij is equal to A Bij. So we are multiplying A with all the elements of matrix B plus C. So vector added to a matrix, again C is equal to A plus B, and in subscript notation, we will write that as Cij is equal to Aij plus Bi. So that gives us essential notation and concept behind matrix addition. So multiplying matrices, that's key to, again, all algorithms that we implement, or a lot of algorithms that we implement. So for product, C is equal to AB. This is how we define matrix multiplication or product. A has to have the same number of columns as number of rows of B. So this operation is only applicable if number of columns of A is same as number of rows of B. If A is of shape M cross N, B should be of of shape N cross B. So if N is the number of columns of A, then number of rows in B should be N. So then matrix product C is of shape M cross B. We can write this as C is equal to AB, or to actually implement that, you would be needing a notation like Cij is equal to summation Aik into Bkj summation k. So this is the notation that you would then actually convert into your loop and element wise multiplication. Okay? So this is the notation that you should refer to when when implementing matrix multiplication. Note that the standard product of two matrices is not just the product of two individual elements. Obviously, it is row and column multiplications and additions and so on. So multiplying vectors, dot products of two vectors x and y of the same dimensionality is the matrix product x transpose y. So this is how the dot product of two can be implemented. So dot product of vectors is same as dot matrix product X transpose Y. So, matrix, if we have implemented matrix product operation, then obviously we can accommodate dot product of vectors X and Y as well. So conversely, matrix product C is equal to AB can be viewed as computing Cij, the dot product of row I of A and column J of B. So matrix product property, so we should be aware of that, while implementing matrix product. So, matrix product has distributivity or addition. So if we have A into B plus C, then, this operation can be implemented as AB plus AC. So that gives us, we might have a complex matrix operation or addition, which can be simplified as, on the basic matrix product operation, sum of basic matrix products. Then we have associativity. So, for example, you have A into BC, then, we can take that as equivalent to AB into C because of associativity property. So, I mean, in many cases, you might have, you might have to solve A into BC, but you already have AB, you already have calculated AB, then you can just take the AB and multiply it with C, and that would give you the solution. So we also have to understand that, these the matrix product operations are not commutative. So AB is not always equal to BA. So you might have calculated AB, but B is the matrix product that you actually need. So you should be aware that, you can't just replace AB with BA. Dot product between vectors is commutative. So, X transpose Y is equal to Y transpose into X. So if vectors are involved, then obviously dot products are commutative. If matrices are involved, then dot product is not commutative. Transpose of a matrix product has a simple form. AB whole transpose is equal to B transpose into A transpose. So if you are going to take the transpose of a matrix product, then you can implement it as, as a product of two transpose matrices. So if AB whole transpose needs to be calculated, then what you are going to actually implement in code is B transpose into A transpose. So obviously, having, being aware of these operations, can save you a lot of effort in many different cases. So you might then obviously can reimagine these things and, come up with optimal implementations as you work. So we are, one of the key concepts that we are using quite often is linear transformation. Okay, so we have typically a problem represented in the form AX is equal to B, where A is, any n-dimensional real space which has n cross n dimensions, and B is, n-dimensional vector, and, this is actually a set of equations. A11 x1, A12 x2 up to A1 and xn. So we have, n equations actually with n unknowns. So that's, our actual problem representation that we have. And we are obviously interested in finding those n unknowns. So A is, any square matrix of dimension n cross n. X is, your unknowns with, which is actually a vector of n cross 1 dimension. B is, a set of real numbers with, again, n cross, which is a vector of n cross 1 dimensions. Okay. So this is our problem. and we refer to these problems as, we want to solve for n for unknowns x. So x is your unknown, x1, x up to xn, when A and B provide constraints. Okay, so the problem that we have got is represented as AXB, where we are interested in finding x, and A and B are acting as constraints to solve to solve that problem. So this is a problem that requires, what we say, a linear transformation. So to solve this problem, we need to recall two more concepts, which are identity and inverse matrices. So matrix inversion is a powerful tool to analytically solve AX is equal to B. So any problem that can be represented as AX is equal to B, that problem can be solved with matrix inversion. So that's the mathematical knowledge that you are recalling to solve the problem. Okay. So it should be interesting for you. So now you can, you know that there are real world problems that can be represented as AX is equal to B. And if we can represent any real world problem as AX is equal to B, then we can apply matrix inversion to solve that problem. So to solve that problem, we further need concept of identity matrix. So identity matrix does not change value of vector when we multiply the vector by identity matrix. So that's what identity matrix is. So we denote an identity matrix typically as IN, which is an n-dimensional vector. So IN can also be n-dimensional matrix. In which case it will be Rn cross n. So, and we can say that, okay, for all x, which lies in n-dimensional space, In of x, In multiplied with x is equal to x. So it would give you the original matrix. So that's the essential concept behind identity matrix. So we know inverse of square matrix A defined as A inverse into A is In. So that's another interesting property that we use, which is, that when we multiply inverse of a matrix, of a square matrix with itself, such as if A is inverse, A is a square matrix, and A inverse is inverse of its inverse, then A inverse into A will be In, which is identity matrix of n dimensions. So using this concept, of inverse of square matrix, we can solve our linear equation AX is equal to B. So what we do is we multiply A inverse with AX. Obviously, if you multiply on one side, then you are also going to apply A inverse on the other side. So what are you going to have now is In x is equal to, obviously, A inverse into A is In, that gives you In. And on the other side, obviously, we have to repeat the earlier equation, so inverse into B. So In into x, you would recall that, since I is identity matrix, so In into x would give you x. And that means that now we have the value of x. So value of x is given by A inverse into B. So by calculating inverse of matrix A and multiplying that with B, vector B, we can get values of x. So that solves our problem. That's what we needed. So this depends on being able to find A inverse. So now we have a solution. We know that to find values of x, all we need to do is find A inverse. But will we be able to find A inverse? Okay, so that's the question. So if A inverse exists, so if we are, if A inverse can be found given A, then obviously, we can solve our problems. Now we look further into mathematical techniques, and try to find A inverse. So we know that Ax is equal to B, where A is m plus 1 cross m plus 1 matrix. X is m plus 1 cross 1 vector, set of weights to be determined, and B is also n cross n vector. So there are two closed form solutions. One is matrix inversion and other is Gauss elimination to find the value of X. So, in case of, we formulated the problem as Ax is equal to B, where A is a matrix, of real numbers. Again, B is a matrix of real numbers. X is our unknown, and our solution to this problem is X is equal to A inverse B. And similarly, you can use Gauss elimination followed by back substitution to solve this problem. I'm not going into the Gauss elimination method, but that's that's, you can take it as a reference that in case matrix inversion is not possible, or it is very costly in your case, then you can look at other methods as well, such as Gauss elimination to find value of X. So other key concepts that we might need while finding solution to these problems is diagonal matrix. So diagonal matrix is a very useful matrix because it mostly has zeros with non-zero entries in the diagonal. Okay, so अब आप ये सोचें कि you have a very large matrix, but if it is a diagonal matrix, then you don't need to solve for whole m cross n. You only need to solve for you only need to calculate for diagonal elements. So being aware of diagonal matrix can give you a lot of computational advantage. So a diagonal of V is a square diagonal matrix with diagonal elements given by entries of vector V. So what are we doing here? So we represent the diagonal elements as a vector V, and you can also represent that as diag of V. So that gives you an interesting tool to work with, and maybe a powerful tool to work with. So multiplying diag of V, so which is your diagonal matrix, by vector X only needs to scale each element by Vi. So diag of V into X is, that is basically, a dot product between V and X. Okay. Also, another important concept that we may need is symmetric matrix. So, a matrix is symmetric if A is equal to A transpose. So, in some cases, that you are going to apply transpose. So, if the given matrix is symmetric, then it is going to be equal to its transpose. So, if it has symmetric property, then A is equal to A transpose. So, obviously, then your operation is basically simplified because you don't need to calculate the transpose. ठीक है, so transpose की calculation आप skip कर देंगे, ठीक है, or because you know that it is going to be a symmetric matrix. So, for example, a distance matrix is symmetric with Aij is equal to Aj. ठीक है, so अब आपने transpose का operation skip कर देना है. So matrix decompositions. So matrix can be decomposed into factors to learn universal properties about them, not discernible from their representation. So matrix decomposition is also an important concept. We will use it at various points because a complex matrix might be decomposed into parts, and those parts might have certain properties that are useful for solving the problems. So, for example, a matrix is decomposed into eigenvalues and vectors to to use the uh, powerful properties of eigenvalues and eigenvectors. ठीक है. So एक मैट्रिक्स है, उसको आप आइगन वैल्यूज और आइगन वेक्टर्स में जब आप ब्रेक करोगे, देन यू नो दैट हाउ योर डेटा इज एक्चुअली वेरिंग इन वेरियस डायमेंशंस. ठीक है. सो अब आप उसको वेक्टर्स और स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ दोज वेक्टर्स की टर्म्स में देख सकते हैं. ठीक है. And that is very useful tool to solve our problems. So developing this concept further, we know that in many cases we might decompose our matrix into an eigenvector and eigenvalue. So what is an eigenvector? So an eigenvector for square matrix A is a non-zero vector V such that multiplication by A only changes the scale of V. Okay. So AV is equal to lambda V. So this lambda here basically gives you what we call as or what are known as eigenvalues. Okay. So V is an eigenvector of A. So any rescaled vector SV, moreover SV still has the same eigenvalue. Thus, look at look for unit eigenvector. So you use eigenvectors just to represent the direction only. Okay. So an eigenvector, even if it is rescaled, it's going to have the same eigenvalue. Eigenvalue is representing the variance that or variability that your eigen vector has. So or the potential importance of the eigenvector is represented by eigenvalue. So we are we are not concerned with scaling of eigenvectors. We are only concerned with direction of eigenvectors and how important that eigenvector is. So typically eigenvectors with very small eigenvalues are not important, and we actually discard them. So consider AB is equal to W. If V and W are scalar multiples, that if A into V is equal to some lambda into V, if we can have this equivalent representations, then V is an eigenvector of the linear transformation of A, and the scale factor lambda is the eigenvalue corresponding to the eigenvector. So these are equivalent mathematical representation that help us find eigenvectors and eigenvalues. This is the eigenvalue equation of a matrix A. So typically we have square matrices A, which you saw earlier as well. So we can write this matrix as A minus lambda I into V is equal to 0. So we rewrote the earlier equation. AV is equal to lambda V as A minus lambda I into V is equal to 0. This has a non-zero solution if determinant of A minus lambda is equal to 0. We then represent it as a polynomial of degree n, and with factors with factored as lambda 1 minus lambda into lambda 2 minus lambda up to lambda n minus lambda. So A minus lambda I, determinant of A minus lambda I gives us a polynomial which can be of degree n, which can be then rewritten as as factors lambda 1 minus lambda, lambda 2 minus lambda up to lambda n minus lambda. These lambdas then basically are the roots of the polynomial and are eigenvalues of A. Okay? So by finding the determinant, we basically find the eigenvalues of A. So we rewrite any square matrix A as A minus lambda I into V is equal to 0. then we find determinant of A minus lambda I, then by rewriting it or by solving it as polynomial of degree n, we find the eigenvalues, and v gives us the corresponding eigenvectors. So if you have got a very nice 2 cross 2 matrix, a square matrix is A 2 1, which is 2 1 1 2. Then we know that to find eigenvalues, you need to find the determinant of A minus lambda I. So determinant of A minus lambda I and corresponding characteristic polynomial is given as 3 minus 4 lambda plus lambda square. And by rewriting it as as root equations, we get lambda is equal to 1 and lambda is equal to 3, which are eigenvalues of A. So now we can find eigenvalues, right? We have developed the mathematical methods needed for finding eigenvalues. So eigenvectors are found by solving for V, because we know that AV is equal to lambda V. So and we know the eigenvalues. So then we can find eigenvectors accordingly. So we know that other important concepts that we need is unit vector. So a unit vector is a vector which has a norm equal to 1. And this is represented with these double lines. And orthogonal vector is another important concept. So if x and y are orthogonal, if they are intersecting each other at 90 degree, then we can, if they are orthogonal, then mathematically we can find that. Obviously we are not going to see them visually. We can check them mathematically by x transpose into y is equal to 0. So if any two vectors that you have got, if they are orthogonal, then x transpose y is equal to will be equal to 0. And that would prove that vectors are at 90 degree to each other. So orthogonality is basically representing independence of two vectors. So an orthogonal matrix, a square matrix, whose rows are mutually orthonormal, that is A inverse is equal to A transpose. So if inverse of a matrix is equal to transpose of a matrix, then you have got an orthogonal matrix whose rows are mutually orthonormal. Okay. So eigen decomposition is obviously an important tool in our hands. So eigenvectors and eigenvalues are numbers and vectors associated to square matrices. So we know that any problem that we have might be represented as a x is equal to b. And then obviously to solve that problem, you might have to solve a linear equation, in which case, you might need an inverse of a matrix, and obviously you need eigenvalues and eigenvectors, and eigenvectors and eigenvalues. They give you basically eigen decomposition of a matrix, which gives you insight into how your problem space is varying. So even though the eigen decomposition does not exist for all square matrices, it has a particularly simple expression for a class of matrices often used in multivariate analysis, such as correlation, covariance, and cross product matrices. So in multivariate analysis that we do quite often, because we need correlation, we need covariance, we need a cross product of matrices, we are going to need eigen decomposition quite often. So this is what also links us with statistics. Okay, so that's how statistics and linear algebra, or basically working together to develop our algorithms, to develop our solutions, to help us analyze our problems, you know. So eigen decomposition of this type of matrix is important in statistics because uh, it is used to find the maximum or minimum of functions involved in these matrices. So that is one application. ठीक है कि किसी भी फंक्शन का मैक्सिमम या मिनिमम फाइंड हम कर सकते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल principal component analysis is obtained from eigen decomposition of a covariance matrix and gives the least square estimate of original data matrix. ठीक है. So principal component analysis, you know, is a key technique that we develop, which is, you know, used for dimensionality reduction. So actually हम ये कहते हैं कि यार हमारा problem, that's it, our problem is actually a million dimensional problem. उसमें एक million dimensions है. But a solution for that problem exists in when we project that problem in a lower dimensional space, which has much lower dimension. So a million dimensional problem might be projected into, let's say, a 10-dimensional space in which, you know, 90% or maybe 99% of all the variability can be represented. ठीक है. So बाकी जो you know 99% dimensions हैं, ठीक है ना, या 99.9% dimensions हैं, you know, they are useless for us. ठीक है. So eigen decomposition obviously helps you to do principal component analysis, which is, you know, your very important dimensionality reduction technique. Okay. So suppose matrix A has n linearly independent eigenvectors. ठीक है. अब linearly independent eigenvectors बड़े important है. ठीक है. क्योंकि अगर एक वेक्टर linearly independent नहीं है तो उसको आप थ्रो आउट कर सकते हैं. ठीक है. वो किसी दूसरे वेक्टर पे रिप्रेजेंट कर रहा है, तो अगर वो वेक्टर जो भी वेक्टर है, ठीक है, वो अगर आप यूज कर लेते हैं तो बाकी सारे उसके जितने भी linearly डिपेंडेंट वेक्टर्स हैं, ठीक है ना, उनको आपको यूज करने की जरूरत नहीं है. ठीक है. सो to solve any problem, you need linearly independent eigenvectors v1 up to vn with eigenvalues lambda 1 up to lambda n. So we obviously we only pick those eigenvectors for which we have strong signals, and strong signals are represented by, you know, significant eigenvalues. उनके eigenvalues जितने बड़े होंगे इतनी variability को रिप्रेजेंट करते होंगे जितना कि हमें रिक्वायर्ड है उस प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करने के लिए. सो कंकैटिनेट आइगन वेक्टर्स टू फॉर्म अ मैट्रिक्स V. अब हम क्या कर रहे हैं, यू नो, योर ओरिजिनल मैट्रिक्स A माइट बी अ मिलियन डायमेंशन. ठीक है. उस मिलियन डायमेंशन मैट्रिक्स के हमने आइगन वेक्टर्स निकालनी है. ठीक है, जो कि हमें चाहिए, एंड कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग आइगन वैल्यूज वी हैव फाउंड दोज. We have combined those eigenvectors through concatenation to form a matrix V. So उन सबको हमने इकट्ठा किया और matrix V बना दिया. ठीक है. Concatenate eigenvalues to form a vector lambda is equal to lambda 1 to lambda n. ठीक है. So eigen decomposition of A is represented as A is equal to the original matrix A, that is equivalent to you know, this diagonal vector lambda into V inverse. So original matrix A जो है, you have represented it with a lower dimensional space V into this diagonal vector lambda into V inverse. Okay. So this is actually eigen decomposition. So obviously if we are and we are often dealing with very high dimensional problems, so we basically, you know, transform them into a lower dimension representation that can then be solved easily, you know, with given resources that we have got. ठीक है. by throwing out unnecessary or useless information. So every real symmetric matrix. So we are now looking at decomposition of symmetric matrix. So every real symmetric matrix A can be decomposed into real valued eigenvectors and eigenvalues. Okay. So as you saw earlier, so this is again, a more elegant representation, although less detailed. That basically is telling you that if you have got a real symmetric matrix A, then you can write it as A is equal to Q into lambda into Q transpose, where Q is orthogonal matrix composed of eigenvectors. ठीक है, अब Q अब जो है ना, हमने eigenvectors of A हमने let's say के मिलियन डायमेंशनल मैट्रिक्स के 10 eigenvectors हमने चूज किए हैं, ठीक है ना. So Q is composed of those 10 eigenvectors. And lambda is obviously the corresponding eigenvalues. So A is then equivalent to A is equal to Q into lambda into Q transpose. ठीक है, so million dimensional problem is reduced to 10 dimensional problem. ठीक है, here 10 n is any real number. ठीक है, वो 10 भी हो सकता है, 100 भी हो सकता है, कुछ भी हो सकता है. ठीक है, so orthogonal matrix components are composed, components are orthogonal, so Vi transpose into Vi is equal to 0. Now, obviously, the vectors that you are choosing, they are independent to each other, which means in matrix sense, they are orthogonal to each other. Okay, so if they are orthogonal, then obviously Vi transpose into Vi is going to be equal to 0. So lambda is diagonal matrix of eigenvalues, lambda 1 up to lambda n. So I hope this is all very interesting to you, because these are the things that, these are the concepts, this is the mathematical and statistical intuition that you are actually using to develop algorithms, to understand problems, to solve the problems. Okay? Your implementations depend on that. So we have some videos that you can watch later. That cover all these concepts, including matrices and vectors. And obviously, there is a detailed, okay. So let me move further and cover a few more concepts. So matrix multiplication properties are very important. So you are going to, if you are going to multiply matrices in your code, then you should be aware of these matrix multiplication properties. So the properties that we have, like A cross B is not equal to B cross A, because matrix multiplication is not commutative. A cross B cross C is equal to A cross B cross C, because matrix multiplication is associative, and we have this concept of identity matrix, which is A cross 1 is equal to I cross A. So A cross I is equal to I cross A is equal to the original matrix A, if I is identity matrix. So as part of your recap of algebra concepts, linear algebra concepts, so you should be aware of linear dependence, projections, determinants, inverse. We covered how we solve linear equations. We covered how we find inverse. We covered how we find the decomposition into eigenvectors and eigenvalues, and how do we use that decomposition. We should know about positive definite matrix, rank of matrices, eigenvalues, eigenvectors, spectral decomposition, and all that. So some of these concepts are covered in the video here. So I hope that you watch that video to to basically refresh all these concepts that we are going to need for developing a sound understanding of data science concepts. Okay, do you have any questions? This is it from my side.
No, Dr. Sir.
That's how we good.
You are good. So make sure that you cover that. There might be, after you come back from Eid, there are too many vacations for Eid this time. But I hope you have nice time. Eid Mubarak to you, everyone. After you come back from Eid, there might be one or two assignments related to, probability statistics and linear algebra as well.
And Mubarak sir.
I was think that,
Right, right.
I might have developed a Kaggle notebook covering various linear algebra concepts, but so far I have not been able to do that. But hopefully in near future, whenever I get a time, I'm going to cover various concepts as part of Python code as well. And that is really useful because just in case, if you need to develop any of those algorithms from scratch for any reason, and there are a million different reasons because of which we have to develop these algorithms from scratch rather than using some library. Uh, so then you are going to obviously need all these skills. So, I mean, we were lucky in the sense that, as part of our bachelor's and as part of our my MS, we studied numerical methods. So numerical method used to be a course where you were developing all those numerical algorithms and you were looking at error and you were looking at all the different algorithms related to solution of these matrices and so on. And that gives you tremendous insight and at least some background while going into machine learning and data science. But definitely you guys uh, need to have that understanding as well, and you need to look at it from purely uh, as a computational mathematicians, as a computational statisticians. So if you have that ability, then obviously that would be a great thing to have for your job, for your career, for your professional development. So thank you very much. Allah Hafiz. Okay, mark
Hafiz,
your
Dr. Saab.
Allah
in,
Hafiz.
Mubarak.
in the team. Okay. So let me that.
हाँ हो गया ट्रेनिंग
मैं वही सोच रहा हूँ खत्म हो गई ऐसी कोई ट्रेनिंग हाँ हो गई खत्म
एकदम से गए हैं हाँ तो देखिए
आई गेस मेरा माइक नहीं चल
ओके